Who took notice of one of the articles on the homepage? Hopefully you did. It's a huge and serious topic. But I'll tell you what, I have to admit, things have altered far faster than even than what I thought. You really have. So, guys, we have mountains of data to cover near the end of this week. Mountains of actual data. In fact, it's something I've never done here at COT before. I'll be doing near the close of the week. That means you guys are going to be bombarded. This time we have to go over facts. You guys have to see the whole picture. Now, the article states, just in case it's not clear, that our North Pole has been moving far faster than anybody ever thought, than anybody suspected, predicted, forecasted. It's already exceeded model tolerances. Due to that, so is the equator. The equator is moving. And to be blunt with you, that means the equator is going to move north 1,290 miles to be exact. That's the estimation right now. That can happen in as little time, right? It's about we're putting that in a gap right now about 1.5 years. That means between that time, the equator is going to be in Kentucky. That's what that means. Kentucky. Now, I hope you guys realize if the equator is in Kentucky, what happens to everything south of the equator and everything north of the equator? This is something that I don't believe anybody counted on. Right? I really don't believe that. And if we get geolocked to a larger object out there, we're really going to stay that way for a long time, right? Just to keep the harm involved. Now, there's some dynamics we have to cover. Right? And a lot of data. Someone said North Pole had stopped for a bit, I think. No, it started moving actually back in 2007 is when all that data was. In 2006, the data was being collected and monitored and watched. But all of a sudden, as of this year, last year, it's been on the move, right? So it has already drifted too far. One of the hard parts is that it's very difficult for anybody to tell what the tilt of the Earth is. It's very difficult, right? And they have to rely upon those who have reference equipment to get the reference for that. We are out of sync. Let's put it that way. It's bound to get a lot worse. We're looking for an abrupt movement. See, no one ever thought that the North Pole could move at the speed it moved. No one ever thought it could cover the distance it covered in a very short time, in about a 2-month time period. No one ever thought that. This is something abrupt that no one felt. And that's part of the problem. The Earth will do a physical reorientation to its axis always, right? And these magnetic forces, we may as well say, or inertial forces, are not going to be very forgiving. Right? They're not going to be forgiving. Anyway, our weather patterns are going to take a big hit on this. You know, that really means if the equator, or say if it were in Texas, you guys do understand that the Mississippi would evaporate. You know that, right? It would boil away. Coastlines on the east and west coast would boil away. You guys understand that? That big wall of water would consume all the southern states, all of them, because the oceans would readjust according to the inertia of the planet's rotation. So that means water levels would abruptly start to shift. I mean, abruptly. And it's something that people will just have to ride out. Now, here's the ironic part. Can you imagine? And it will happen just like this. You'll probably get a report of evacuations in certain areas. Possibly you'll live in one of those areas and you may have 60 days to move north, to relocate, to move north. Because the key would be to stay away from the water band that goes around the earth. You would see it coming slowly. I mean, slowly but surely it would come, right? So with the hot temperatures, you're looking at temperatures the USA has never seen before. Not in living history, all right? Not in our history. We've never seen that before. Tropical and arid regions reversing, changing, this, that, and the other. So you're looking at a total change of all topology, essentially, with the change of a tilt. Now, this is not theoretical. That's the problem. This is happening. This is happening, right? It's happening already. In fact, the equator and that big wall of water around the equator of the Earth has already shifted. It's shifted, right? And I'm gonna be careful because I want you guys to see the absolutes, the data, the absolute, not some theoretical nonsense, but the absolutes, because this is a problem, a big problem. As a consequence of these problems, that means everybody who knows about this, they're going to start making moves. Well, let's change that. They already started making moves. They're going to continue to make those moves, right? Because our weather patterns all over the earth are going to shift rapidly. Rapidly. And there's nothing anybody can do about this. This is one of those effects that we're going through in these times, through an adjustment, you could say, of our entire solar system. It's going to be a bit chaotic for a bit. And this is something we're going to have to get used to. Again, this is by no means theoretical. This is not a topic that's going to go away. This is unexpected. This is not something everybody was looking forward to. This is nothing anybody predicted. And that's why it's just one of those things. It was, I guess you could say people thought about it, right? But the speed at which this is happening is going to cause some pretty big problems. Now, you can alert everybody about this. I don't know if they will or not. I would say as they get closer to a time, they're going to have to come up with something to get people to shift from where they are. Right? They're going to have some sort of an excuse to get you to move from where you are north. That's the only way to get people, away from that water band, unless people start to go far south right now. But they're going to have to come up with something because they don't want the entire human populace to go, right? There will be displacement. It's not like the movies. It's nothing like the movies. None of this is like any movie. It's not like a movie. So, but you will have to get large portions of the populace to move, right? So that means, hear me on this, something will have to happen where all those states, Texas, all those states below a specific line are going to have to adjust. I do not know what they're going to tell them. I can suspect what they may tell them. But you're looking at some very real circumstances coming up. And hopefully you guys, listen, don't become frightened about this. It is unexpected, yes, because it's not discussed directly. But we'll certainly feel the outcome of this shortly. We have no choice, which means Canada is going to get some company. So I'm hoping we do not go to war, right? I'm hoping we don't go to war. Again, let me explain this to you guys. The equator is going to move 1,290 miles. That's the estimate. It's going to move north. So that puts it right across Kentucky and Tennessee. The equator, okay? That's where it puts it. That means all the weather in the USA is going to be altered. All of it. All of it. We're just going to live and see how this thing turns out. I suspect that it's going to cause many to do a double take about the times we live in. It's going to cost a lot of money. It will be a national crisis, I guess you could say. Right? And it's just something we're going to have to deal with. Just going to have to deal with that. Get used to it. And that's only one of a few issues. But listen, we live in a time right now where we need lots of data. Lots of data. So, I hope you guys don't mind official sources working in tandem to show you this data. Because it's not all, this data is coming from all over the place, right? It is surprising. It's unexpected, very unexpected thing, but and people are scrambling right now. They need to figure this out. Right now, they're scrambling to figure this out. And they have dumped, I was shocked at how much money they sunk into this, how many people they're bringing on board to see what can be done, if anything can be done, as far as people are concerned. So relocation, some sort of relocation event is going to have to take place. That means something along these southern states, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all those places. Something will have to happen because that's going to be wherever the equator is, that's a dead zone. Nobody can live on the equator. You can't live on the equator. It's too hot. You guys do realize that, right? It also means due to a wobbly tilt, it really brings to light things in the Middle East that the Lord was, for example, remember when Jesus said, pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath? Now, why would he make that comment about the winter, right? At a very specific time, period. In the Middle East, they have winters there, and it's somewhat rough, but they're not that bad, right? Unless these patterns, if they start to shift, they could see Arctic temperatures during the winter. They could see that. Nobody here is set up to deal with super hot temperatures and a water rise. Now, this brings up something else. That means not every place is going to flood. In fact, some places that have water right now, they won't have water when this happens. This will disrupt how it rains. It will, because it does not rain on the equator. It does not rain, right? And it's going to be a lot to comb through. I mean, a whole lot to comb through. There's so much data on this. Actual data, not theoretical data, not calculations. Actual data. You need to see what actually happened. You need to see the dates at which they happened and the time spans in between the movements of the poles magnetically. You need to see that. And some of the physical effects that are now taking place. Nobody could ignore we live in a very strange time. The month of May last month was the hottest month on record ever. The hottest one. This year, right? Somebody said naval map. Well, that was back then. Listen, things are progressive. So any maps they made back then, right? I'd be like, besides prophecy, if the Navy developed a map back then, hear me on this. They made that map based on data that was available back then, right? Many things have changed since back then, which means if they have a different map now, this will change all maps, everything. This is going to change everything. But if they made a map back then, they didn't have the data they're dealing with now. And I know for a fact the Navy has a different, the map has a name. I'm not going to use that name, but they have a different projection to what they believe water levels will be. Starting, already, this process has already begun according to them. They have a different map. That map has been changing over the course of years. What happened was that map got out. And when the map got out, right, the data kept pouring in. Some of that data has been refined. Some of those areas have been altered and changed. But we've gone through more changes. See, when you have maps based on data, you can only base that on data that you have available. We have a lot more data available. conditions have changed. And the closer we get to a time of any event, the more accurate you can be about that data. So the more refined those maps will be. So which means that map from the Navy is outdated. It's just simply outdated. And that's not going to serve a person well. It is not. It's outdated. There have been a lot of changes since then, right? There's a difference in the atmosphere since then. There's a difference in the sun since then. There's a difference in the earth since then, right? And so everything has been altered. So that map is, it used to stand back then, right? But there's no way that can be accurate now. One of the reasons is, since the equator is going to move, you're looking at the USA tilted, essentially tilted, which means part of the USA is going to be submerged anyway, but not like that map. And it's not based on topology, right? We even have a change in topology here. There have been mountain ranges that have altered their altitude because of underground magma. So, things change. Things change. The only thing that does not change is prophecy. God's prophecies, not man's prophecies, God's prophecies. His prophecies do not change. And so anybody who, bases their information on prophecy, they're going to be all right. They may not be totally accurate, but they're going to be all right. Right? The Lord told us. That's why he didn't give us specifics in the data. He didn't give us specifics in the data. He didn't do that. The Lord knows exactly what will happen, right? And so we do well to make sure that we always take heed to that. If you want to really be prepared for all these things, try not to anticipate anything, right? Get to know prophecy. Understand prophecy. Don't solve it. Don't solve prophecy. Just make sure you go over what it says. Make sure you're acquainted with what it says. God didn't put us here to solve prophecy. Prophecy is to help us, right? It's not a game where we go out and solve it. That's not what it is. It is to help us. It becomes a guide during the times when things do take place. It also serves as a motivation and a truth as to what God will do. God's telling us what he will do at specific intervals, right? So we do well to pay attention to that. Now, as far as the earth is concerned and things that happen to the earth, we've gone through so many things. Was Mount St. Helens in prophecy? Was it? Was World War I and II in prophecy? To a degree they were, right? Humanity named those times, by the way. Our Father's not looking at time like we would think about time. What happened to the Jews? Was that in prophecy? You better believe it's in prophecy. One of the problems is people tend to make prophecy what they want it to be. We must never do that. As people who believe in Christ, it should be enough for us that our Savior is bringing about these changes, not the devil. Our Savior is. That's why I don't naturally give credit I don't give credit to HAARP, but I don't give credit to all these other things that you guys may or may not know about. I don't give that. I don't do that. I give credit to the Most High. And if the Lord said that we're going to have storm and tempest, if the Lord said nations are going to be in distress with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring, I'm not going to sit there and give credit to mankind like he just thought something up. No. There are many different methods by which things can happen. It's important for us to know that they do happen so that we're not uprooted. If God gave us something anyway, that is to keep us, not to lose us. Right? It's not to lose us. It's to keep us. And concerning these awful times, like the ones we're about to go through, well, we knew they were coming. We didn't know exactly all the details, right? The methods as to how. But we know they will be fulfilled. We know that. We're going to be going over a lot of information at the end of this week, at the close of this week, guys. It really is a lot of data, It is a lot of data. And so the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of that data, we have to go through too. I will be presenting quite a bit of it. I want you guys to really understand the situation so that you can see for yourselves what's happening. Now, from that, you'll have a pretty good forecast pertaining to events here on the earth, dealing with the climate in that respect. You'll have a good handle on that. So it's not going to be some big surprise when these things do take place. Now, here's the other thing. Most people get scared of times like these because they truly have a struggle letting go of stuff. Throughout these storms, people died because they did not want to leave. They couldn't leave their possessions. They couldn't do it. So I'm going to ask you guys something. If you are attached to your possessions, now is a good time to really think about not being attached. You got to face that someday. Some people have pictures on their walls, right? And I'm telling you now, if something bad were to happen, they would risk their lives to go back and get pictures off the wall. They would. Because that's the only way they've ever been taught to keep somebody's memory alive. The only way. They would go back and kill themselves and other people for it. They would. Right? That's no good to be that way. So in that case, we have to focus on some truth factors here. A picture is not going to keep a person alive. And some people have not yet gone through the process to realize the reality of what they live in. Those people they're not in this realm anymore. They still exist. They did not die, right? But they're not in this realm anymore. And if they could speak to you, they would probably tell you to stop thinking about them and to go forward with Christ. They would. But we have some true preparations to make. It's got a lot of people nervous. So I'm giving you guys this stuff because they're scrambling right now, but just speaking hypothetically, if this is absolutely true, all the adjustments begin right now. All of them. Do you hear me? All of them. So don't be shocked and surprised as far as what you see to get people out of certain areas. Don't be surprised. Somebody said, what's going to happen in all Canada? Everybody's going to have, I do have an idea, but I'm going to save that for the data. We're going to let you see the data first, the actual data first, so that you can see it for yourselves. This is a subject that probably is not a good idea for anybody to start speaking about this subject off the hip. And the reason why is because anytime you're dealing with a subject where large amounts of people are not going to make it, you do not want to shoot from the hip. And when it becomes real, when things begin to happen and it becomes real, those who know about it, you're still going to get nervous. You're going to get nervous because you'll know what's happening. You can't go out there and be an advocate to make everybody know what's happening. You can't do that. And you can speak to people by way of truth, but everybody does not receive information the same way. And if you start talking in all facts, if you start talking about facts, well, then that's a different story. That will really scare people. Unfortunately, in this case, we have to go over all the data. And that'll be later this week. At the end of this week, at the close of this week, we'll begin that process. Not before. It is a touchy subject. It takes a lot of responsibility going forward. It is, nobody should use this subject for points and views and status. Don't do that, because death is going to be a result of this one. So the more you know, the more you have a handle on this situation, the better. Okay, the better. But if I were you guys, I would not advertise for yourselves. Go out there and talk about this subject because you don't have the data yet. You just don't have the data. You cannot assure anybody of anything. You don't have the data. And that data is going to be carefully monitored. Too many things are happening at one time. And this is one of those breakneck subjects. People are scrambling right now. It is a surprise. It's a shocker. But there it is. To them it is. To them it is. Due to the nature of it. Right? Because suppose, for example, the North Pole, right? It moves some, I'm not going to tell you how many miles, but you'll see that in the data. It was an impossible move, and it did actually move that much, and it caused a physical effect. If the equator does this, which it will, it's going to cause a physical effect due to inertia, the rotation of this planet. When that takes place, some people are not going to have a warning. They won't. These things are not happening by our, clock. They're not. They're not happening by nobody's formula contracted either, because the forces that are involved are somewhat unbalanced. So some of the movements are chaotic and unpredictable, which makes it even worse. Keep in mind you're dealing with a wall of water that is extremely high at the equator, right? It's extremely high. If you had a ball with tassels hanging on the outsides, right, and you rotated that ball, those tassels are going to start shooting straight out because of inertia. Right? What's in motion tends to stay in motion, so they get repelled outward. The water on the earth is the exact same way. When you look at the earth from a distance, it is not a big round ball. It is not. It's an oval, right? When you see it from a distance, it is an oval. It is quite overwhelmingly big, and it's oval. It is not a ball. That's not what it is. But that oval contains a lot of water. Most of the water of the oceans is going towards that direction of the equator, in which it builds up and it's caused this big water wall to go around the earth. That water wall is going to move as the equator moves, right? As that line where the inertia is, as it moves, and it's going north, it's going to shoot north. On one side of the earth, right? It's going to shoot north. In other words, the earth is going to tilt because of this. Once this happens, well then, inertia takes its toll, and then some places that had water will have none, and some places that had no water, they're going to get a lot of water. The data is going to be a necessity on this. The good data, the actual data, people are actually working from. And from there, you experts in these subjects, after you get the data, it's up to you what you do with it after you get the data. But I wouldn't speculate before that data hits, okay? I wouldn't speculate anything. It is not a good situation. It is a critical situation. It's something unavoidable. Some people are disheartened by this. You're going to notice that. You're going to notice that some people are very disheartened by this. Very disheartened. Somebody said, where's the data? It's all over the earth. It's with NOAA, it's with NASA, it's with all those who have been a part of tracking. This data is not centralized to any one agency. No. Something happened. So that once we start disclosing the whole thing, you'll see it. But it is not for the public yet, which is why I had to be careful on how I'm doing this. I want you guys to understand this situation is not a joke. It is by no means a joke. It's not something to scare people. It's not something to motivate people. But you need to know about it. Because you can't tell anybody something like this, knowing the implications of it. You can't do that. And with the time interval involved, it is shocking. It shocked everybody. So I'm sure you're going to hear a whole lot more about this later on after the fact. But I have to give you guys the data, the absolute data. You have to see this so that you will have an understanding, so that nobody goes, you don't want to make it more than what it is. You certainly do not want to underrate it, because this is going to cause pretty big problems. But no one should be shocked and surprised. No one who believes in Christ. See, we all knew these times and these uncertainties would come. We already knew that. There are no guarantees on the stability of the earth. Right? There are no guarantees. And so you guys should be acquainted with this. Revelation is going to become very real for a lot of people. That's going to cause a problem, because you're about to see the true nature of folks. When they find out that their whole livelihood is things could really abruptly change. When they find that out, you're going to find out what the true nature is. People like me, until the last day, we're going full steam. Full steam. But I want you guys to be aware of this. Don't become nervous about it. Right? Nothing has been... we don't have that data yet. We haven't put it out there yet. I haven't put it out there yet. And I have a lot of it. Just my little part. I have a lot of data. I have a couple of notebooks of data, you could say. But everybody's going to be very methodical and responsible with this. This is not one of those problems that is a fascination. This is a problem. An issue. Nobody can size. It's kind of like some of these eruptions that we're having in some of the cities that are in trouble. Somebody said the spiders already knew. Yeah, they're migrating big time. In fact, there are 17 species of spiders that have come to the USA in 2024 that were never here before. They are on the move big time. They're on the move. They're moving north. Everything is moving north. Bugs are moving north. Spiders that live in certain climates are moving north. They're very sensitive to the climate. And there is possibility they can feel it changing in their regions. Right? Like in Peru, it's a known fact in Peru, the temperatures there have begun to alter. So has humidity. They have this, they have a constant humidity average that it's just totally different than what it used to be. Everything concerning weather is shifting north. But now we know why. Because they didn't share. See, a lot of people don't talk about the North Pole and the magnetic North Pole they used to back in 2012, 13, and 14. You guys remember that? And they stopped talking about it. No information about the North Pole. Well, you're going to find out why. You're going to find out why it abruptly halted. And then the information, if you go to the internet right now and really start citing your sources, you're going to find that the information is very old. All the information they're using is old, right? Because they come up where the actual magnetic north is. And then you do the little formula with the physical effect on the north. You have to do that from space. You have to have cooperation from those who have access to space. You have to see the earth in a totally different light from many different spectrums. You have to see beyond the terrain and all these things to see the absolute movements of the earth. And they have to be, you have to calculate that precisely. The only way that can be done is with precision equipment. Not just one satellite, but let's just say all the GPS satellites, right? All the geo-tracking advancements and some other names, those satellites. I don't want to get into that because people start talking about geoengineering, so I'm going to leave that alone. But you have to track the earth and the surface of the earth and the inside of the earth. And you have to have an external view from that. And you have to do that all around the earth, all at the same time. So that means all satellites working at the same time to get the exact same image, a positive image and a negative image, top down, right? Bottom up. You have to get those images. Compile that data to see how the earth is moving in the first place. But there are small telltale signs of this all around you. If you pay attention, you'll notice. And then when rivers begin to reverse their direction, that's really going to let you know that we have a difference in inertia taking place. Now, because of this, I'll tell you some of because of this, I expect some of the ice melts that were to take another year to take only 3 more months. That's what I expect. I expect most things to be compressed that much. So instead of a year, you're looking at a 90-day interval for that to happen. So these things people have been waiting on, and they say, well, they could hit, another 10 years from now. I expect those things to happen by at least the beginning of next year. Because things have absolutely sped up in what's happening. But again, at the close of this week, we'll go over the data so that you guys can see it yourselves. And for those of you who really study these things, keep the data. And if you don't mind, we'll coordinate some things, right? Because your opinion, your spiritual opinion, and your opinion is highly valued, because we need to discuss some of the more academic aspects to this subject. And we have to do that in a very responsible way. So hopefully, when you get the data, you will be up for that, willing for that. Because, folks, if the timeline is shorter, then if the timeline is right around the corner, we can't entrust anybody else to warn anybody. And we can't just burst out there on the stage and say the world is coming to the sky is falling. In 90 days, you can't say that. We're going to have to do that in a responsible way, very respectful way, and present it, right? We're going to have to present it. We're going to have to use a world standard to present it. In other words, with all the data, with all the forms, everything. So we can do that. We can put that out there. That way we have a conclusion that will turn into an advisement. We will have served our purpose on this. And people are just, I don't know. I hope you guys are doing okay, though. Hope you're doing okay. No, I didn't say 90 days from now it'll start. Oh, also something else. I want to tell you guys something else. Try not to proceed this subject in any way. I've noticed sometimes when I'm talking, right, is some people take sound bites. You can't do that when I'm talking. It's not going to work out for you too well. If you get this information wrong, the world will crucify you, and it'll be your fault. I'm not going to get the information wrong, because I have to present all data on this. This is going to be all data. All data, okay? If lives are going to be lost, we cannot make a mistake in the presentation of data. That means no guessing, no theories, just data. And we'll go where the data points us to, because that's a heavy responsibility. It is. It's heavy. And I'm just thankful I know about it, that I'm able to share that with some of you guys who will then help me refine that for a larger group. Okay, but we have to go with just data, just data, just data. Okay? Just in case you haven't noticed, I hate to say this, but, those trusted channels in this world have never warned anybody of anything that killed them. They never did. They never did. If they can't take credit for something, if they cannot control something, you're not going to get that announcement. You're not. So, for a time, it's going to be in the Christian community. But I would ask that all of you be responsible with the information. I want you to know today so you know what to expect at the close of this week so we can hit the ground running. But this is one of those surprise problems. It has a lot of people stumped. It does. I mean, they're stumped. They are. It is not it's not one of those problems that could, be a 50-50 chance. That's not what this is. This is something far different. Right? Something very different. Very different. So, at the close of the week, we'll start covering that. So all of you who are working those areas, be ready for that, okay? We'll start disclosing information on that. Do our best in that. Guys, I'm going to be back in a few minutes right here at COT. Right? There's something else I need to tell you guys about. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, everybody. Boy, do we live in odd times, huh? Finally, I kept saying yesterday, well, we finally made it. We're finally at that time. I kept going through my head over and over again. Finally, at that time. So, guys, look for that at the close of the week and throughout the week. I'm going to update materials to match that. Okay, we get that matched. This is going to take, hopefully, this weekend, we go forward with very responsibly. This is going to become a touchy subject. We're in a touchy subject. So if you guys understand the gravity of it, and this is all interior. This is what's going to happen inside the earth. So here we are. Somebody said, should I still pay your taxes? Yes, you go forward as normal. Just because you hear of a tornado warning, right, does not mean you stop living. Your Father's in control. Our Father's in control. There are oftentimes tornadoes come and hit nothing at all. Remember that, okay? Things may get bad. They may get bad. But even still, that doesn't mean you'll be uprooted. See, the truth is, the estimation is 1,290 miles north. The truth is, that's the estimation. The truth is, nobody knows how far it'll actually go. Nobody knows. You're dealing with forces that do what they want to do. You cannot predict these forces. Just like the North Pole and the movement of the North Pole. They couldn't predict that. They can only track that. These things have to be tracked. Prediction is no good, right? You can estimate based upon the data you have at that very moment. That data changes week to week, and we're going to have to stay on top of it. We're going to have to stay on top of it. So, if you know about it, right, one of the key reasons is not to know about the doom of part of the USA or the doom of some other countries. That's not the point. The point is that you're aware of what's happening in your environment so that you can understand why people may do what they do, right? For example, if they come up with some excuse saying that, people have to leave a certain state because of poison, right? And then come to find out other states have that same mandate. Well, you'll know something is beyond the poison, okay? Something. There'll be some indicators for this. And we're going to have to watch those indicators very closely. Very closely. This has happened before. Just so you didn't, this has happened before. The equator has not always been where it is. And a lot of people they don't realize that. There was a time where the equator went right through the North Pole. You guys do know that, right? That happened more than a few times. Now, when you start putting all this data together, it means that the life we're living right now is indeed a beautiful one, but it's not promised to stay this way. And as believers in Christ, we have gotten so used to taking what the Lord has blessed us with for granted. Do you know why? Because in truth, we're like spoiled children. We truly believe that we're not supposed to have storms. When a hurricane comes, tornadoes come, what do? We get upset. We start blaming, HAARP did it or something like that, because people really believe they're supposed to have good conditions, and that's it. That's what they honestly believe. spoiled. You know what the truth is? If we do have a good day, it's because of our Father. If we keep our homes overnight, it's because of our Father. That's why. See, we have a lot to be thankful for, but that's not how people are thinking. We're spoiled. We act like we're supposed to have everything we want to have. And when we don't get it, that's the time when we pray. We have forgotten that through God's grace and mercy, he staves off some of these mishaps. If his grace and mercy were not upon us right now, how could we live and survive? You would have a bad day. I would have a bad day. None of us would be able to brag, and we've forgotten about that. The Lord gives us stability. Like your jobs, your employment, your income. Somebody was talking the other day, and they were talking about their local church and giving to their local church. You know, I was just thinking in my head, wait a minute, are people not? Do they not even believe it is God Almighty who enables them to work in the first place? Without him, everything would go wrong in your life. Your life would be chaos. God's presence is the absence of chaos. You're the only reason. And in fact, listen to this, because of his goodness and because of his order, because he is light, darkness is chaos, because of his order, you're able to complain. Do you hear me? And that's a sad thing. You live in his order, in his peace, and we complain.